Regardless of who you are and how smart you pretend to be, it's actually hard to call a game indie these days or even know the exact small devs and how many people they have working or even their budgets. Look at the Ascent. One of the bit that was always pushed was, hey, it's like 10 people, which even the devs were all, no, it's not. We have a ton of contractors also working for us. Here are a couple, though, by sheer bevy of information we do know how big their teams were or how small their teams were in this case. And a couple games shoot above their weight, and I want to talk about an honorable mention as well as the actual game that I think is the best indie or small dev game that we got this year. I would like to know what your best indie or small dev game is. For me, the honorable mention is easily Kena. Now, this is a beautiful game. It's thoughtful. It's gorgeous. It opened up to a fictional world that wasn't really explored until there's nothing left, like so many other mythologies. You got to jump into something that was unique, and for that, I really did enjoy it. I also liked its gameplay, though. It had just enough combat and story and exploration to really fulfill each of those requirements, but somehow made them all stand out in some unique way, even if it was a difficult boss or an incredible vista or that feeling of, hey, you know what? Let's go just a little bit more, even if it's 3 a.m. and you need to get up for work at 5 a.m. I enjoyed Kena a great deal, and I think as an honorable mention, there's absolutely no issue there. But there is one game that stuck with me. It Takes Two. If not for the damned love book character, this thing would have scored even higher. But seriously, It Takes Two took two people to play it, which is better or worse, I guess, lessening of the overall attraction to a lot of gamers. But if you found a friend or a loved one or a random stranger who is okay with investing a little time, It Takes Two is a childhood fantasy come to life with the sharp edge of parental splitting as its genesis and really hope as its end game. It Takes Two followed two parents who are getting a divorce, and they tell their child, who just like science books say is possible, cries them some dolls and brings them to life. These two people need to figure out what has happened. They need to work together with offsetting skills against oncoming enemies, sidestepping disaster while leaping into weird situations like military squirrels. Are there any other kind, actually? The mastery here that we see in A Way Out continues here in It Takes Two, with the developers' handling of mature subject matter laid over a fine blanket of tight-knit gameplay and some humor. It Takes Two ups that gameplay to consistently surprising amounts, though. The developer had already stated they wanted to make sure players at all times felt like they were doing something different, even if it was built on the experiences right before it. And it never really is proven untrue in the game. The game's many puzzles have you working together not only in positive spaces, most games of this sort we see, for example, requiring both of you to jump on a weight for a switch to go off, but a tremendous amount of negative space puzzling, figuring out where you can't be or where you need to be, or making use of just one of you thinking, I got this. It slid you down a garden drain pipe and into some fractured fantasy land of a battle between squirrels and wasps as you tried to escape back to your house. The ideas behind everything, from the bosses, which ran the gamut from pissy toolboxes to microphone snakes, to the more adult emotions of separation and parenthood, It Takes Two never really forgets where its heart is. Teamwork, requiring past experience, and a fresh idea or two for each new location. And what they did in It Takes Two is something we don't see in a lot of other games, and that's that they made sure that every location you went to didn't only require something different, they looked incredibly different. And yes, I still hate that damned book character, but when it comes to a title that consistently was refreshing, absolutely engaging, and will stick with me when it comes to an indie or a small dev, is up there. It's always interesting as well to look at this developer and see what they've tried to do. They've always done something that I thought wasn't really planned, but now that I see sort of the way their family unit is and the way they've developed their games, you see, which is that co-op. They always have that co-op, and I can't wait to see the next one. When A Way Out came out, I was like, man, I don't like the idea of both people hearing audio at the same time. It seems to be weird, split, and it turned out to be such a fun, over-the-top, weird, but highly enjoyable game, and very good action. It Takes Two was the same way. You always look at it and you're like, oh man, they're going to require two people to play. That means single player people won't be able to get a chance, or people who don't have online. Well, you can do co-op as well at your home. But there's a lot of people who won't get a chance to play it. And I just didn't know exactly where it was going to go. And we hear this from a lot of platform/action games, and especially co-op games, where people are like, you'll always question what you need to do next, or you'll always be doing something slightly different. There's a couple times where you're like, all right, I'm still just sort of jumping here. but overall there was something fresh in It Takes Two from start to finish. There was always some new thing you were doing wherever you went. And just when it sort of felt like, this is starting to get a certain way, then they would inject the story with a perfectly timed cutscenes and really great characters. Even though I didn't like the damned book character, the idea that I didn't like him enough to mention that usually indicates that they were well done, because they weren't necessarily trying to be the most loved character. They were slightly annoying, and I enjoy that, and I think it did a good job. Even though, let's be honest, one of those characters that you play, I'm not going to say which one, bitches a lot. Lastly, I want to give a little honorable mention here. The Ascent, cybernetic gibbing, glory hole, gratuitous gun battling game was insane. It also had a number of technical issues, which unfortunately hit it hard when it first came out. In fact, I think some people are still having technical issues. I didn't run into any. What I enjoyed about that game was it was beautiful. There were so many things going on, and it was actually fun gameplay all the time. No matter what I was doing, I actually enjoyed the story mostly. I thought it was actually pretty good, and I was into cyberpunk at the time. So the idea of this overarching arcology and the various different people taking over for it was quite interesting, as well as where they were in the fictional setup. A lot of times you'll get it where they're at the power or height of power of something, or at the very lowest of power. Here, there was an absence of power, and what happens when people try to slip in who are also somewhat powerful, including your boss that you work for. I loved that idea. The Ascent really did nail it for me. I know, again, a lot of people had technical issues, which absolutely sucks, because whenever you're playing a game like that, you're like, man, I hope everybody's experience is the same as mine. And unfortunately, it wasn't. Anyway, that's it for me. I would love to know what your guys's are. Post them in here. Hey, if you don't agree and you have another small dev, or if you like the Ascent more, or if you like Kena more, throw it in here, explain why. Make sure to be nice to each other. No reason to be jackasses. First 2,000 people who respond will be considered not jackasses. Peace out, everybody. Check out the Patreon.